If God is to reside in a certain place in this world, it should be somewhere quiet, peaceful, and clean. It would most likely be a place where light streams through, reaching these suitably designed corners. The result would be an interactive composition of beauty, like here in the HAYASTAN monastery. This is always our first impression upon entering the chapels held sacred by Armenians throughout our journey. HAYASTAN is a 12th century monastery located in the gap of a mountain, as if the building is in hiding. The zone of the architectural site marks the beginning of the HAYASTAN River in the Tavush province of northeastern Armenia. Georgia lies to the north and Azerbaijan is to the east. This is the first province we arrive at upon crossing over to Armenia. The province borders Georgia. BAREV DZEZ HAYASTAN, the memory of a young woman's face.
Like everywhere in Armenia also, the young people can be divided into two groups: those who are very close to the church and those who are really far from church. But as for me, I think that religion all the time was the very community that kept our country. So due to religion, we were able to survive during all these years and to overcome many difficulties.
If we ask a young Armenian about the subject of faith and belief, we'll end up getting a wide range of responses. Many times, the turn of events leads one's heart to place trust in heavenly hands, even without knowing exactly where God resides. And yet there are times when physical reality cannot match spiritual intuition, especially when that insight comes in the form of an inspiration to do something greater than oneself. From that inspiration, magnificent wonders of the world have been built, time and time again. The Armenian Apostolic Church is the national church of the Armenian people. The Armenian Church is a branch of Oriental Orthodoxy or Eastern Christianity. It's also one of the most ancient Christian institutions, since the Kingdom of Armenia was the first state to adopt Christianity as its official religion. Oriental Orthodoxy is commonly confused with Eastern Orthodoxy due to the synonymous associations of Oriental and Eastern. In fact, Oriental Orthodoxy and the Eastern Orthodox Church belong to very different groups.
Welcome to Noravank Monastery. It was built in the 13th century by Orbelian noble family members. Here they were about 10 members of Orbelian who are buried. I would like to separate especially this one. You can see here the cemetery, the grave of one of the Prince Eligium Orbelian. There was carved a lion. On the grave, the lion is the power.
It may not be too late to say BAREV DZEZ, which is used to greet a friend in a far-off place. This young Armenian lady is tirelessly introducing her beloved country on this summer trip. The hot sun doesn't discourage Armeni from walking on smiling as she takes us around while sharing her perspective on this small country. which is full of great stories. Historians say that the map of Armenia resembles the face of a young woman. We are tenderly touching her face from the north downwards, from the border of neighboring Georgia, before we head southeast. Armenia is a landlocked country and has no zone that releases into the sea. The country occupies an area of 29,743 square kilometers. Armenia is situated between the Black and Caspian Seas. It's bordered by Georgia to the north, Turkey to the west, Azerbaijan to the east, and Iran to the south. So the young woman called Armenia has remained in the middle of great empires from past to present. She has served as the crossroads of civilisations between Asia and Europe, dating back to the time of the legendary Silk Road. The Mongols, the Arabs, the Persians, the Ottomans, the Russian Empire, and the Soviet Union have gone to war with this small country. Despite Armenia only having a small population, the country has managed to survive and preserve its role as a cultural and religious bridge in the long history of exchange to this very day.
When you are entering here, if you look around, you see the dark walls. On the walls you can find the writings. So there's a history, the story, culture of Armenia. And each monastery has its unique story. When we are coming to the church, we prefer to speak by ourselves, to keep silent and to speak inside of us much more better than to speak loudly.
Few people would know that Armenians living in other countries all over the world actually number from 8 to 9 million. In the United States of America, there are up to 1 million Armenians who have gone there to work and settle. They sought refuge in other countries during the Armenian genocide, which was the systematic destruction of the Armenian people and their identity during the Ottoman Empire from 1915 to 1917. Another wave of Armenians migrated to other countries during the era of the Soviet Union in 1918. There are currently just over 3 million Armenians residing in the motherland. Armeni, the Armenian beauty, who was serving as our guide, was born in 1990 during the era of the country's independence. But even then, things weren't so stable, and many neighbors disliked each other. So as a young girl, Armeni turned to developing an interest in learning other languages that she had a special preference for. Her first language, of course, is her own mother tongue. The second language that all Armenian children still have to learn is Russian, and their third language is English. And yet Armeni didn't stop there. Korean was another language that she had a special interest in, and she was an exchange student in Korea for 6 months. She then became one of the first people in her country to be qualified to communicate effectively in the Korean language. That led to her serving as a guide for a Korean tourist. In any given year, there are many Koreans who arrive in Armenia as tourists. We ask Armeni about the faith and belief practiced among Armenians of her generation. Do they still hold the same level of belief as the previous generations? She tells us that it's 50-50. In this day and age, there are many things that occupy people's interest other than going to church. But for her,
when you are entering, your feelings, the atmosphere is very unique. There's a lot of peace here. You can just sit and for a long time, just relax and to communicate with the God.
Armeni tells us that the church that she loves and adores the most is the Hagpat Monastery, which is over 1,000 years old, and the architectural complex has survived since the Middle Ages. Hagpat Monastery was built in the 10th century and is on UNESCO's World Heritage List. Armenia tells us that in this large complex, a long history lies layered and buried. When she is on site, she feels as though she has become part of its history. Our history and culture can be compared to a passport that shows the world where we come from and who we are. A person who loses their history is no different from an orphan. For Armenia, each historical site has a special meaning and energy. Every time she comes here, she feels a sense of freedom, peace, and quiet. She can breathe and smile freely, and she's not bound by any cares or thoughts. There is also a special room where she takes the time to hear the birds sing, which is just like listening to a spiritual song.
Our church we are calling Apostolic Church, called after the name of the Apostle Saint Thaddeus and Bartholomeus, or Gregorian Church, after the name of the first priest who brought Christianity to us, Saint Gregory Illuminator. In the church, when we are entering to the church, starting the praying, we are making the cross. For us, we are holding our three fingers, this position, and making the cross. By the way, we are starting from the left to the right. Why? Because we are saying our heart here on the left side, we are opening the door to the God and starting to pray. For the priests, they are holding their hands on this position. This is calling with God hand. So they are giving their blessing to us in this. This is Holy Trinity, Father and God and the Spirit. On the way at the top of the column, you can see the cross, which is also like Holy Trinity. Մեր հյուրերին առաջի հարցը որ հետաքրում ուզում են իմանան քրիստոնեությունը ինչ մեծ դեր է խաղում Հայաստանի համար։
Այդպես գլոբալ հարցեր ես ինչ իմանամ բալաբի խելոք բաներ հարցեր ես ինչ իմանամ ինչ դեր է խաղում։
And for the people, now this is the my question, yeah, like old our history coming from the many centuries back and now is that nothing is changed. Actually, everything is the same. So our alphabet it was created in the 5th century by.
How did
And now the praying that he is using during the liturgy, it was written from the 7th century until now. Nothing was changed the same. So they are keeping. And for the young generation and old, it doesn't matter. Everybody is coming to the church.
Եվ եկեղեցին ինչպես կա, այնպես էլ մնում է։ Երբեք չի փոխվում եւ մարդիկ էլ չեն փոխվում։ Ուղղակի պետք է ճիշտ մատուցել եկեղեցու ավանդությունը։ Այո, մատուցման ձևերը կարող են փոխել, բայց էությունը չի կարելի փոխել։
The church is remaining the same. The people are remaining the same. The church must know how to treat the people, so they will get adapted and come to visit the church. Just keep the rules and traditions.
We all have our own passports in which we keep our records of our travels. This 2-lane highway stretches far ahead, leading us deep into the summer land of Armenia. It's a glowing brown landscape with a temperature suitable for bees. Armenia is taking us to meet and greet the locals who are tending to the bees and selling honey. The vans we see here are like their mobile homes. Julieta, age 65, tells us that she is here for 5 months of the year, from May to September, before the arrival of the long winter.
Որտեղ ստեղից աղիքները շատ են, բերքարատա, լավ մեղր համով մեղր ալնում, անարատանտիր մեղր.
Because here we have a lot of beautiful flowers, wildflowers, from which we can make organic nature honey. Ինչ որ հատուկ ասма գաղտնիք կա մեղուներին կերակրելու համար։
Դեղ ենք տալի դիզի համար, որ դիզ չբռնեն, չհիվանդանան, տալիս ենք, այդ պարտադիր գարունը տալիս ենք, իսկ դրա, գարնանը, իսկ ձմեռանոց դնելուց էլի բան ենք կախում, էլի դեղա, կախում ենք, որ գարունը հանենք, կցենք, որ չհիվանդանա մեղուն։
They must check also like the health of the bees. That's why there's a special medicine for the bees. They are putting it inside so for the bees not to get any infection.
Երեք հարկ ալնում, չորրորդ հարկ ալնում, մի քան տալիս ենք, հետո երկրորդը նորից էլի անում ենք։ Մենք հələ երկրորդը չենք տվել։
Այսինքն մի անգամ բերքը ստանում
հավաքում ենք, նորից սկսում ենք, նորից ենք անում։
Մայիսից մինչև սեպտեմբեր։
Հես արդեն այդ ընթացքում պետք է պրծնենք երկրորդը։
So from May to the end of September, 2 times they can make like a harvest of the honey, we can say. So in some parts they already finished like first period, and now they are waiting for the second period.
For those entering Armenia by crossing the Georgian border, most would stop by to visit Dilijan, which is a town located to the northeast. The valley of Dilijan is surrounded by the Lesser Caucasus Mountains from the north. Dilijan is one of the most important holiday towns in Armenia. It lies at a height of 1,500 meters above sea level, which accounts for the nice cool weather all year round. Saram Street is Dilijan's last Old Town district to have been on the receiving end of conservation efforts. Saram Street is only a few hundred meters long, and yet the street itself has a unique personality, especially with the wooden relief works exhibiting on architectural structures. Gregor Hosepian, age 56, is one of Dilijan's carpenters whose distinctive works of relief carvings are decorated around town. We tend to see Gregor featured in the photo albums of Dilijan's visitors, so he's actually quite famous. Gregor is also living evidence of someone who has remained undamaged by the COVID-19 pandemic and the hands of time. So let's go and meet him.
It's like a family work his father also was doing, and now he's like continuing his father's job. His father has passed away, now he is in Armenian language it will be Paiti Poragrutyun. Pomegranate it looks like the earth, and you see a lot of seeds inside. It is like the countries, like nationalities. We are all gathered inside, and it is unity. Pomegranate also it is fertility. When you are traveling through Armenia, the architecture, when you see, you can find pomegranates everywhere, grapes and pomegranate. Pomegranate is, as I told you, fertility, unity. At the same time, for us, it's a life tree.
What we experience from here onwards is very much outside the mainstream travel plan. And today, Armenia takes us to meet the first relative in this quiet Mologan community on Highway M4. This small community is located in Fio-Letevo village in northern Armenia. There is no grand architecture to attract one's attention, only small, ordinary-looking houses along the gravel road. There are vegetable patches in the backyards, This place doesn't attract enough attention to be placed on any tourism map, but there is one home that Armenia wants to take us to. Mama Natalia is a 60-year-old Mologan who is considered to be the village celebrity. She's waiting to welcome us with these pierogi pies, which are pillowy pockets of dough with vegetable stuffing. The tea is boiled with water from samovar, which is a traditional Russian metal container. The Mologans were Russians who migrated to Armenia in the early 19th century. They were a rebel spiritual Christian sect that evolved from Russian Orthodoxy during the time of the Tsars.
Мы здесь живем уже пятое поколение, почти около 200 лет.
So it's already their fifth generation who are living here in the Fialetova village in Armenia. It's about 200 years.
The Mologans are representatives of the spiritual Christianity established in Russia in the 18th century. And as spiritual Christians, they don't follow the Orthodox Church and by extension, the hierarchical system of the Church. Crosses and icons are just human-made objects, and Mologans reject them as items of worship. They also refuse to worship saints. They view the crucifix as a tool of execution and believe the true Christians put their faith in the essence of God. With this way of thinking, they had to leave Russia. More importantly, they don't like to have their photos taken since they believe that it's a sin. This is why we have to speak to Mama Natalia in this way. It feels as if time has stood still here. Mama Natalia's patches of large cabbage are lined in rows to connect with the patches of the neighbors. The level of produce is consistent, ready for turning into vegetable stuffings and pickled vegetables, which are famous products of Fioletovo. Mimosa flowers are a premium product created by bees. Their refreshing golden yellow color continues to compete with the summer sunshine. The Mologan population in Armenia is only 3,000. Here in Fioletovo, there are around 1,500 Mologans. The community continues to preserve traditional ways of life and thought, which accounts for their history of faith going back almost 2 centuries.
Ну да, картошку сажаем, морковку, свеклу, капусту, этим живем.
So they are doing agriculture works. Mostly all the Malagans, the villagers, are living here doing agriculture works and planting the cabbages, the carrots, the potatoes, cultivating it when the season is coming, and of course they are selling it.
Mama Natalia's pierogi pies are very distinctive with their crispy skin after being fried. And we have been invited to take part in wrapping up the dough and stuffing them with flavored cabbage and potatoes. The pies themselves have served as a bridge for people from a distant land to wander into the setting and share in the experience of drinking tea and getting to know each other. It all seems very simple, and the way of life of the Mologans has shown us that peace and happiness are easily accomplished with things that one already has. In Mark Gregayan's book, the stories and images of the lives of the Mologans are recorded according to all of the seasons. Perhaps changes are happening, except that we can't almost see with our naked eyes. Join us on our next episode as we continue the exploration.